Hey everybody, Cody Menz here. This video is definitely going to be a bit different than my usual videos, and honestly pretty negative. It's been a long time coming when it comes to making this video, to where I'm not the only person that has kind of realized that Wargaming has kind of moved a different direction, and the game is kind of suffering because they're focusing on essentially aggressively monetizing the game at the expense of their player base. It's all kind of coming to a head here during the 1.20.1 update, which is currently on the common test server, and most notably, as my backdrop within the game shows here, which will be basically the entire video because this is just going to be rambling about my opinions about this proposed update. You have two main things. The too long don't care to watch this entire video, however long it's going to be version, is they're essentially insulting the entire player base, especially their existing players, by offering 12 retraining orders, for those hundreds, if not thousands, of individual crew members you have, for what's essentially going to be a necessary and mandatory crew skill update, adding in new crew skills and also reworking existing crew skills. And on top of that, there's some major issues with World of Tanks Plus. Yes, they're adding yet another premium account into the game that's completely separate and only purchasable through the premium shop with real money. You won't be able to purchase that with gold, nor will your existing premium account days have any effect on the new World of Tanks Plus account that has really interesting and unique features to it that are very strong. In any event, though, if you don't have the will to listen to me for however long this is going to be, I highly suggest, you take a very good look at, the article for this, update, and also honestly vote with your wallet, as some other community contributors have said, where really at this point, to be quite frank, Wargaming does not care what we think when it comes to our thoughts and feelings, our thoughts and prayers. They don't care, quite frankly. And I'm trying to be careful with my language here, because this is probably the first update. This even makes Rubicon way back in the day, for anyone who remembers that. If you don't know what it is, go look it up. It kind of even makes that seem like a small blip on the radar, to where this is probably the first update. And one very wise person today, won't say who, said, Wargaming has completely effed up when you take someone like myself that's pretty typically level-headed, and I can kind of see both sides of things, and turn me into essentially a really pissed off person, providing very strong words when it comes to feedback and stuff. And it really have we gone too far, when it comes to Wargaming? The answer is yes. In any event, I'm going to jump into it here, but I strongly suggest, honestly, the only thing Wargaming will listen to is the community at whole, like casual players, people watching my video here, where unless they see that their aggressive monetization of existing players, and also going forward, it's the very few new players that they're attracting with all of these decisions, not actually improving the game in any meaningful way, except for adding in more monetization elements, they're not going to care. They don't care about me making this video. They don't care about you filling out a feedback form, that just makes you feel a little bit better and that your voice is heard. I was a very strong, supporter of Wargaming listens to you. That's kind of out the window. They don't care anymore. They're only going to care if you vote with their wallet. Anyway, I'm going to be going off of the article instead of their video, in hopes that it'll make it a little bit easier to kind of go through things here. Essentially, I'm going to go down this. I have all the links to this article and some other useful articles in my description here. But starting out here, with the 1.20.1 common test, the Recon Mode they're adding in, honestly, this is just fluff. You know, they're adding in, not into standard battles when the patch comes out, but essentially a new recon mission where random elements will happen, and there's also pieces of dynamic cover that you can push around, kind of making hold down tanks better, albeit you can destroy the destructible cover. Honestly, I think it's kind of cheesy. Like, do we really need this for maps and battles that really only last, 5-6 minutes at most? They're not really random events when they're going to be happening in a minute or two in the battle. And also, I don't really get the point in adding it into existing maps, that have been in the game some 10 plus years, where I'm perfectly fine if they introduce like new maps with dynamic elements, whether it's like water going up and down or a plane crashing, stuff like that. But for the most part, it seems like a waste of time to me to try to bring it to existing maps. They have 4 currently, I think, that they're trying to do here, and I don't care. It just seems like a waste of time. But a couple issues. So essentially red zones get painted on the map before like a plane crashes or a train comes. Big issue with that is, as a lot of people pointed out, it's going to introduce team killing again. People are going to most likely push you into that zone and kill you. So yay. And also, even though the zones are labeled, you could like barely be in it and take massive damage and get destroyed, even though, say, like a train or a plane crashing within that zone doesn't touch you at all. It's dumb. Moving on. Probably the largest issue at hand for this update is the crew rework system. For those that follow my content, and for those that don't now, I was honestly a huge fan of what they had going into this. It looked great. It looked like they took people's feedback from the Crew 2.0 that a lot of people hate it, and rightfully so. There were very bad pieces of that, and I personally hated the monetization elements of that, mainly the instructors. However, I was really excited about this because it looked like they were going to introduce some nice improvements to the existing system and kind of keep a lot of that trash out of it. We were wrong. Where this is awful. I'm still, I wish that they would not screw this up. However, so some good things. They're allowing all skills to start working the moment that you train them. You don't have to wait until 100% for certain ones. Now, like Brothers in Arms, they start working right away. Also, firefighting got moved from everybody down to the radio operator, and you get refunded for the crew members that's taken away from. Awesome. There's no more penalty for your experience earned if your crew member's injured at the end of the battle. Small change, but nice thing there. And also, like, personally, I'm kind of excited for bringing new crew skills and stuff to the game to freshen up a system that honestly has been boring for the 12 years I've played the game. It's honestly been stale, even with the changes they made pretty early on to the game. The problem is, starting with some bad things and not the worst element of it. So the newly introduced skills that they added in here, and I'm not going to go in depth into all of them. There's going to be a ton of content and videos from other CCs going into, why each one is specifically bad. However, basically what they're doing, whether it's the new ones or rework skills, but mainly new ones that they're adding in here, like some make your RNG better when it comes to like shell tuning. Other ones, basically, snapshot already increase your dispersion, but there's quick aiming for aiming time. Added dispersion for concentration. There's many new skills that are essentially mandatory. They're 100% needed to stay competitive. And Wargaming basically has not stated at all, and you see in this update, they will not be changing the amount of experience required for each crew skill. So some, especially Manicore commanders, takes millions, if not over 1 billion experience to get all of the crew skills. It's almost impossible. And on top of that, a lot of these skills are really poorly balanced and some extremely powerful when it comes to, say, like engineer, adding, extra kilometer an hour and increasing your engine power. The where it almost seems like they're introducing like really strong new perks into the game. And when you see the whole thing about retraining your crews, it makes sense because they want you to get these new ones that you don't have. And especially like decreasing consumable cooldown by 15%. They're all required basically to stay competitive. And like you might say like, oh, 15% for a consumable cooldown's nothing. Okay, it doesn't seem that much, but so moving into, I'm just trying to find it here, but essentially Deadeye, they've changed some perks and made them better, but they also changed so the major qualification on your crew, which goes above 100%, now directly affects almost every single crew skill except for Brothers in Arms, where not only are some of these skills better, but also they get boosted above their basically listed attributes here. So something, say like Deadeye, where you're going to be getting a massive amount of module damage to people you're shooting now, and thus you receiving, where crew skills are now more powerful, thus making tanks better, thus making people with better crews that much better than everybody else, and increasing the grind for crews to where, I've played the game since 2011. I have very few crews above 6 skills because I play a lot of different tanks, where it's very intentional because you go to essentially, what they don't really, go over too well here in the article. You only have 12. Okay, this is the first screen you or a second screen you get while logging into the, what will be the update. You get 12 retraining orders. I'm going to go into more of this later on in the video, but for someone with about 1,500 crew members on tanks that are used, not just like laying in my barracks, you get 12 regardless. That is insane. Where, I'm going to go more into depth into that later, but they're essentially making you pay to reset your skills on crews that you already spent gold to train, to get to 100%, crews that you've spent years building up and stuff. Now, if you want to do this new content and stay competitive, you got to pony up and pay money, essentially. Moving on. So, Japanese TDs, almost forgotten about, where it's crazy that, for a new update, especially bringing a new tank line this soon in 2023, to where they've already released the Chinese heavy tanks that were pretty much forgotten about already. Surprisingly, this is not the highlight of the update when it comes to the Japanese tank destroyers, because it's pretty astounding to where they included so many negative elements that you almost forget about these, because what's the point of it if the rest of the game's essentially burning down? More or less, though, it kind of shows you like it's sloppy, because yet again, like, they almost don't know their game, like whether it's like the people creating the the promotional stuff here or the developers or stuff, because this isn't the first time in recent memory, but they're touting them as having solid frontal armor. They don't. Like, I think about one tank, I think the tier 7 maybe, has decent frontal armor. I think it's a tier 7, maybe it's tier 6, and that's about it. The rest of them are just like the tech tree, or not the tech tree, the premium Kari that has like, it looks like it might have armor, but it really doesn't. Everything's gonna freaking pen it. And then unsurprisingly, the poor tech tree, as you kind of go through here, a lot of people have been waiting for these. Like, consoles had, Japanese TDs for a while, but like the poor little tech tree tier 8, if you want to laugh, go to like tanks.gg or on a common test server and do a comparison between the premium Kari and the tech tree Hori 2. Literally, the Kari, again, unsurprisingly, because it's a premium, is just infinitely better than the tech tree one in almost every single category. It's not even comparison. It's almost worse than like the Skoda T56 versus what the TNH at tier 8 or whatever the hell the tank is, because you don't even know the name of it, you know, in the Czechoslovakian heavy tree, because they're so different, you know. But moving on here, you have Onslaught, which Wargaming, you know, they killed off rank battles, it seems like. And it seems like they're trying to kill off Onslaught. You know, we saw Onslaught come in 2022, and it was pretty fun. People liked it. You know, it wasn't perfect, but it almost seems like they are basically shooting themselves in the foot here. Maybe they're trying to kill it so people don't want it back, and then they could be like, well, people don't want it. Essentially what they did is they gutted almost all the rewards from it when it comes to people wanting to play it for equipment, unique tanks like the rank battle shop. You don't really earn much. You know, you earn some cosmetic stuff and some other little things here or there, but you're not really getting that much of a reward now for Onslaught unless they change things. They're also trying to introduce combat modifiers to make Onslaught, I guess, seasonal, to where each time Onslaught comes back up throughout the year, there'll be a different combat modifier that may make you want to play different tanks. And they're saying that by adding 25% more hit points to every single tank and making consumables go from 90 seconds to 45 seconds, that'll make you want to play more tanks. The most popular tanks in Onslaught were pretty much heavy tanks, heavy mediums for the most part, things with high HP, high armor, you know, big hard-hitting guns. And guess what? These buffs are essentially going to make those tanks yet, you know, even better. So it's almost like, does Wargaming not know their own game? It's almost comical at this point, to where it just doesn't make sense. And like, why would they even introduce something like this? Because like, are you saying that tier 10, you know, tanks, essentially the gameplay isn't right and we need to modify it here for what's supposed to be like a competitive format? It's completely asinine. Getting down to World of Tanks Plus. So World of Tanks Plus, yes, they're now introducing, you know, yet another basically premium subscription. So for those that haven't been in the game for very long, originally it's what is now called Wargaming Premium account, which you almost can't even find because it's very hidden, if not removed from being able to purchase. So that used to and originally worked across World of Tanks, World of Warships, and World of Warplanes. They kind of phased that out with essentially replacing it with World of Tanks Premium time, you know, World of Warships Premium time, where that's what we've had for now. Now you have World of Tanks Plus. You're only going to be able to purchase this after the common test server by paying them essentially $9 US a month in the premium shop. You will have zero option to buy this with gold, anything in game, and essentially all of that premium time and, you know, money and stuff that you've supported, you know, up to this point. Like some people like myself have like 900 days of premium time. All right, we're adding this new, you know, premium account in here, but we're only going to take essentially cash. You know, we don't want basically the money that you've already spent to support us. Thanks. So what's the problem with WOT Plus? Sure, this honestly to me should be added into the premium account. You shouldn't have to basically spend additional money on top of it, because you're already spending about, you know, $8-10, you know, somewhere around there for a premium account each month, depending on how you purchase it. And now they're expecting you to pay $9, you know, upfront essentially for WOT Plus. So they introduced WOT Plus on the Chinese server well over a year ago, and like after testing it, we're finally seeing what they kind of determined what they should do. So at first glance, it kind of seems like a small add-on, where you don't really need it. However, a lot of people, including myself, and I'm going to glance over everything here, and there's going to be really specific videos from other CCs, it's almost mandatory if you're a competitive player and you want to keep up basically with content in the game. So this is essentially meant to devalue essentially the money that you've spent already in the game, whether it's items you have or even your premium account, because going forward, you're definitely going to need this. So what does it do? You get a gold reserve. Basically, for paying $9 a month, you have the luxury of being able to basically get back some of your money in the value of in-game gold. 500 gold per week, about equivalent of $2 per week. Not awful in the value here, but the problem that a lot of people pointed out, and I agree with, it's going to have a ripple effect where it's introducing a lot of gold into the game for people, spending money and, people kind of passively playing. And it's going to inflate the auction value of tanks, basically putting anybody who doesn't have a Watt Plus account at a disadvantage, because you're either going to have to pay gold direct, or if you're a free-to-play player, you have basically no shot because things are just going to keep creeping higher and higher. They are also doing an extra excluded map here. Now, this one's huge, where personally, I could care less. I don't blacklist maps. A lot of you guys know that if you watch me. But this is essentially going to make Marks of Excellence values go up, Ace Tinker values go up, anything competitive like that, because you're going to be able to blacklist, not just 2 maps, now 3. And if you're playing a super heavy or a light tank, it really changes the maps that you see within a given time frame, and it's going to make not having a World of Tanks Plus account on the competitive level for what's really, there's not a ton of endgame in World of Tanks for like Marks of Excellence and stuff. And as Wargaming teased earlier on in 2022, they're reworking the entire progression system. If you don't remember that, look back, there's links in my video. They're reworking the entire progression system for like emblems and basically cosmetics and stuff to show on your tank within the battle. It's going to make all those values go up. So if you don't have a World of Tanks Plus or World of Tanks Plus account, well, screw you, you're at a disadvantage now. Free equipment demounting, this is massive. So except for experimental equipment, which is largely kind of hiding under the radar here during all of this, you're going to be able to demount things for free. That includes bond equipment, which usually costs 200 bonds, I believe, to demount. Massive. This essentially basically screws every single competitive player over entirely. So it seems like an attempt to make or allow new players to catch up to veteran players to earn bond equipment that's exclusive. But basically what it's going to do is another thing here is raise MOE and Ace Tanker values up, because now it's almost going to be a necessity to run bond equipment on your tanks in standard battles, especially when mods come out that allow you to move it around automatically. Because if you have a World of Tanks or World of Tanks Plus account, you only need a handful of bond equipment to move it from tank to tank as you're kind of playing to, say, do a MOE, run or try to ace a tank, stuff like that, or missions. And it's basically like, you can't really say it's just like a slap in the face. It's almost like Wargaming's taking like an office chair and like hitting their essentially like clan war players over the head and just completely wiping them out. Because over the years, for those of you that play the game a lot, they've made bond equipment like one of the big rewards for doing like clan wars and like rank battles, Onslaught, like your competitive modes, and slowly trickling out like new pieces of it, like little by little. And now all of a sudden, oh well, you ground out and you have like 40-50 pieces of bond equipment. Well, screw you, we're gonna let this person like pay $9 a month, and they can just start out with a few, and they can have it on any tank they want because they can move it whenever the hell they want for free if they pay us $9 a month. It's just insulting, and on top of that, early in 2023 here, they finally added in that people have been requesting the bond hardening into the shop in game. So a bunch of people rushed out to buy bond hardening because before it was kind of limited in how much you could get through these events. So people went out and spent tens of thousands of basically bonds on bond hardening just for the next update to slip in here and make it all worthless, because you only need 1, maybe 2 bond hardening essentially if you have a World of Tanks Plus account. So Wargaming's almost, they're evil. Like, they knowingly took advantage of knowing that they were going to do this and trickled that out right before to basically steal all those people's bonds, knowing that it would be very much devalued the patch after. The extensive crew regimen or whatever the hell, earning crew experience offline, you know, it's a pretty new feature at it. I'm not too against this, aside from, you know, the new crew perks and stuff are pretty much a necessity to get, to where it's a pretty clear, I guess, pay more money and essentially you're better without even having to play the game, because you're going to be able to get better crews without even logging in, essentially. So pretty big, not the worst part of this though. Last but not least though, so they're doing the exclusive rental tank, and they're starting with the TS-54, which it's an okay tank. It's nothing extravagant, but they're essentially, and who knows if this is just going to be a Watt Plus feature that's exclusive. This can accommodate any American crew member, whether it's SPG, light tank, medium tank, into this. Doesn't just have to be an American heavy crew. So that's one huge new feature, probably exclusive to Watt Plus from the looks of it here. However, just because they do this TS-54 once doesn't mean that they're not going to, say, introduce a second tank, a third tank, a fourth tank, kind of like you have like other options, say like game passes and stuff, where they keep adding, you know, stuff to kind of keep you subscribed. The where we finally reached, like in 2023 here, Wargaming doesn't, you know, they're not just content with us, you know, paying $30 and we get a premium tank and we can play it whenever we want, you know, kind of come and go from the game. No, they're now renting pixel tanks that you don't own. You now have to pay them $9 a month forever to keep access to that tank. Otherwise, you know, Wargaming's going to take it back. Who knows if when you don't have access, I don't think it'll demount things or anything. You just won't be able to play it. But no, you don't get to play that unless you pay us $9 a month forever. So we're kind of at that point where, like, this is such a huge thing, and like this part of the Watt Plus account isn't really focused on, I feel like, as much from people. But now we've already seen them put a lot of tanks behind loot boxes and different like hoops to jump through to purchase, and like FOMO elements to basically monetize the game. And now we're seeing them directly, you have to pay to rent a tank. That is crazy. And here we are. You know, it's just one little piece of this update with all the negativity. Moving on. So Battle Pass collections, not too against this, even though it's 100% monetization here. This is essentially them adding in some extra tokens to get you essentially to want to complete all 3 Battle Pass chapters within that season. I'm okay with it because, sure, it's kind of locking 3 tokens behind it, but it's giving people a reason to play. And Wargaming, you know, this form of monetization, do more of this, less of, you know, screwing over your customers. This part of the update, a lot of people, so this is a very small piece, garage slot for credits. Some people are really excited for this and think it's amazing. I can kind of see a different part of this, the where I personally think that Wargaming should keep the gold option and also add in the credit option. I don't think they should remove, you know, the gold. I don't think they shouldn't introduce the credits, where they're essentially just making garage slots only purchasable for credits for 250,000 gold. So my opinion is that's pretty awful, because especially for new players, 250,000 credits is a lot for each garage slot. And it's going to add yet another credit grind sink into the game. And credits are already pretty much the hardest thing to earn in the game in the long run, because you have to spend them on pretty much everything. Ammunition, you know, tanks, equipment, you know, you name it. Credits, you know, you have to spend it on. So currently, you know, garage slots cost 300 gold, or the equivalent of about $1.20 in real money. This is excluding the fact, like, you can earn garage slots via other ways, like whether it's freebie tanks, you know, stuff like that. But essentially, when you convert 300 gold to credits, it gets you 120,000 credits. So Wargaming's bumping that cost all the way up to 250,000. And people are like, yay, awesome, you know? Like, don't get me wrong, I think they should have both options, but not one or the other. And a lot of people buy garage slots when they're 50% off, which is 60,000 credits. So Wargaming's charging a huge premium here, for this good change. It's good, but it's also screwing you over in a way. But essentially, for someone who, say like myself, wants to collect all the tanks, currently, as of this update coming in, if you wanted to buy every single, tech tree tank and grind it out, you're going to have to spend 85 billion credits to get that. To where, why not keep both options? To where if some people want to spend gold, let them spend gold. If they want to spend credits, let them spend credits. But don't, have one or the other. You should have both. So that's my personal opinion. Now, getting back to the crew system here. Now, this is getting towards kind of the end of the video here. I guess I have two more things to cover. The crew system, so the 12 crew retraining orders here, as you see this screen that I still have up here that I literally can't get past on the freaking common test server because it's this crazy. It's just an insult to every single player, whether you're a somewhat new player, kind of a casual player, or a veteran player like myself that's played the game for about 12 years. So the simple fact is they can dance around this all they want, but they're trying to make essentially every single existing player like myself hand over your wallet or their wallet as they essentially dangle you off a cliff. If you don't give them your wallet, so you can basically reset your crew skills for gold or purchase additional gold to then reset them, you're essentially going to be at a huge disadvantage. And Wargaming's just, you're going to fall off the cliff. Like, screw you. You don't want to pay up and basically look at all this hard work that we've done, and you don't want to pay essentially to reset your crews and essentially have access and pick the perks that essentially are mandatory at this point, with especially all the new ones that are extremely good. It's essentially insulting to where, sure, you can do one of the free or the credit options, but then you're losing, a massive amount of crew experience, which some crews have millions of experience on. So you're losing your valuable time, like your life that you spent on playing, a game. And now they're essentially just, that's worthless, and essentially they're just saying, screw you, pay us up, or you don't have access to this. Because some crew skills, with how it works, they're not changing the amount of experience that it takes to get each skill. So some take you hundreds, if not thousands of battles to actually get the next skill. Or, you can spend a bunch of, crew training to get them. And it's essentially 100% just screwing over their existing players. And some people, spending a decade plus for a crew. And now, if you want to actually stay relevant, you need to essentially, pay them money, to where they're essentially making this decision purely based on greed. And it's just crazy when you think about it, because, like, I kind of compare this to like Rubicon, to where I feel like this is even worse, because, it's essentially just they're not looking at this change as, providing like valuable, improving the game and stuff, and then more people are going to play, or people come back to try it out and, hey, this is awesome, I want to keep playing. They're essentially making it to where they are basically just trying to make money off of every single change that they do in the game. And this is exactly proof of that, even at the cost of their existing players. So for someone like myself, that I have about 1,500 individual crew members across 723 tanks in my garage, and those are crew members that I need, like in tanks, whether it's tech tree tanks or certain tanks like premium reward tanks that I have separate crews for. It'll cost me about 300,000 gold to retrain them at the 200 gold retraining cost. And that's about $1,200 just for resetting my skills, if I want to do that, for each and every crew member. So where, do I need to do every single crew member? No. But even considering like half of them, and a lot of them like I've had for 5-10 years, That's insane to expect somebody to do that, to still stay relevant. And essentially it's yet another aspect that Wargaming's done recently to kind of devalue your time that you spent and the money that you spent in the game over the past 10 plus years supporting them, to where that's not good enough anymore. You've got to pony up and pay more money now and support us here going forward, or else, you know, screw you, you don't have access to, you know, new content. But essentially they have a few different options, you know, to reset and basically make things right. And it's not that difficult. You know, they've done it in World of Warships, and I understand their reluctancy to just reset everybody's skills and you log in and you have to pick every single, you know, skill before you play a battle, because that's a pretty big hurdle, whether you think so or not, and it kind of does put people off from coming back in and playing. Whatever happened to, so during the Crew 2.0 sandbox, they had basically a little button that automatically suggested crew skills and perks for each, essentially, commander back then, because they only had one commander per tank. Whatever happened to that idea? It actually was pretty good when I did the sandbox, to where it picked pretty much, I'd say 90% of the time, exactly what I was going to go for on a tank. Whatever happened to that novel idea? Is it too hard for them to introduce and now they're just lazy? Probably. But if they were really concerned about that hurdle of resetting everything and making people pick before they play again, why not do that? And if not, why not give you a free retraining order instead of this insulting 12 number for every single crew that you have that actually has experience on it for a crew skill? Novel idea. Or as some people suggest it, why not make essentially retraining for crews free for 3-6 months, what have you? Maybe even if it's based off of the first time you log in after the update. Awesome. Or maybe just make it to where any existing crew at the time of the patch has one free retraining order essentially baked into it. There's so many different ways, you know? It's just insane that they're doing this. But wait, there's more that's not specifically in this article here. And, you know, these are going to be linked in my, essentially, descriptions here, where this is based off of, so the sneak peek roadmap video, also the future world of tanks, where getting into this part of the video, not going through these videos, essentially Wargaming's already confirmed that there's going to be 2 more phases of the crew rework in this year and kind of going forward. This is just phase 1. So phase 2 is essentially just improving the crew and crew skill user interface. Okay, nothing crazy. However, phase 3, and that's probably going to be, you know, at the end of the year, they're removing the basic 0 to 99% basic crew qualification, the major qualification. Awesome, that's great for new players and making any new crews going in the future, and also allowing you to turn your junk crews into crew training manuals. However, they haven't confirmed if it's going to be phase 2 or 3. I'm assuming it's going to be phase 3. You're going to have the ability to train each crew member up to 3 tech tree tanks. Basically, instead of just the one that you currently can, you know, in this update and currently. So all of that gold that they're expecting players to spend now to reset your crews to stay competitive, because they're only giving you 12 retraining orders, later on in the year, you know, you've already spent to reset those skills for these crews. Now, that might honestly be wasted, because now you might just, you know, oh, well, why don't I just use, you know, my best crews and now break these, you know, crews I don't need anymore into crew books and dump them into my best crews, and most likely it's only going to cost gold to add on the 2nd and 3rd tech tree tanks to those crews. So they're going to profit twice, essentially, based off of just guessing how it's going to set up. But looking at how they're doing this, makes sense to me, to where they're going to try to essentially charge twice to take advantage of new crew updates for their existing players. And new players, you know, aren't really impacted as much. But the main problem I have is, essentially, so wrapping things up here, because this is a very long video. So we've kind of seen over the years, and this is where I'm not going to go over each and everything that I have written here. So the bigger picture, and I know this might not be the largest font in the world, but looking at some updates that they've done going all the way back to December 2021, back with holiday ops, you kind of see, they were introducing some new ideas like the artist strategy mode, revamping battle pass, rework maps and stuff. But, kind of getting, further on into late 2022, we saw massive and negative change, basically with the holiday ops and with the way that they set up the event. You kind of see a little bit of a pivot to where, honestly, it started before these updates, but getting into like the nitty gritty here, I just need to get into the final bit here. So essentially they've shoved in things so to continually, and this update is kind of the pinnacle and I guess the end game for Wargaming to complete this process, to essentially monetize their existing players. We saw them introduce field mods, essentially adding an extra credit and experience sync for all players, but essentially players that already have ground out everything. Now, early this year, they finally shoved in experimental equipment, which devalued essentially all the equipment you already have had. And we still don't really know how it's going to work exactly, to where I don't think it's a coincidence that experimental equipment is missing from World of Tanks Plus in this entire update, to where we don't know how components are going to be earned. We don't know how you're going to earn experimental equipment. And they haven't included it in the Battle Pass at all, or any of the events like Steel Hunter so far. So to me, that almost looks like they're setting it up to be monetized in some way, whether you have to purchase it for gold or purchase it for real money directly in the shop, or some way, because it's not tied into this huge rework that they're doing. And they're honestly not even bringing it up at all. Like, they gave you that little freebie hit of it and not a word. Where, experimental equipment, they, nerfed it down a little bit to make people content enough not to freak out too much. But they still said, they're bringing more pieces of experimental equipment. Some might even combine 3 or 4 different pieces of equipment together instead of just a couple. And it's, to me, looking at Wargaming's done in recent memory and over the course of the game, you're kind of, I guess, naive if you don't think that they're going to be monetizing that as well. And as an existing player, that devalues your standard equipment, bounty equipment, bond equipment. But essentially this master plan of theirs, over the past 2+ years, starting with field mods and then experimental equipment, they're essentially trying to increase the number of, essentially monetizing existing players and adding in yet more, essentially, monetization into the game that's already, everything's monetized in this game. Let's be honest, literally, I'm surprised they don't sell you fuel for your tanks. Maybe that'll be in 2024. But essentially, we see an increasingly number of auction events, FOMO events, assembly a shop, additional loot box events, locking premium tanks behind essentially gambling for loot boxes, whether or not you'll get them. Now incorporating rental battles into the World of Tanks premium account, or World of Tanks Plus account, excuse me, and also incorporating rental tank rewards, for the Object 263 or 283 or whatever the hell that medium tank is for holiday ops, and a Waffentrager, instead of earning a tank permanently. And that's kind of the first phase here, them kind of changing things and introducing these things. We're kind of in the second phase of this master plan, in my opinion, where now they're kind of, we saw in the last update, actively balancing tech tree tanks to nerf them based off of being too popular. Rip the Progetto 65, to get players to kind of grind different tank lines, as they see fit for that season. And then, they did the introduction of experimental equipment, and more or less now adding in this crew rework. Now they're trying to monetize you essentially with resetting your skills. They're introducing the World of Tanks Plus account that devalues your existing money that you spent on the game, like premium tank time, you know, stuff like that. And if you haven't seen already, today they actually introduced yet a different article, and this is all linked in my description here. They're actually permanently dropping the price of the World of Tanks premium account, which, yes, this is a good thing, but for everyone that's already bought that already, and now, you know, you're looking at potentially buying a World of Tanks Plus account, even though you have years of the premium account that you thought that you were spending supporting the game, and you were kind of set. Now they're kind of discounting this by up to 14% for the premium account because they want people to buy the World of Tanks Plus account as well. So they're kind of in this phase of kind of shuffling around the economy to devalue some of the existing stuff and kind of introduce, you know, monetizing the game even further in the future for new and existing players. And I think all put together, like what they're kind of aiming for is you're gonna have to basically pay for a premium account, which a lot of people do, World of Tanks Plus account with direct money, no gold in game, Battle Pass chapters, and also complete all the Battle Pass chapters to get the collection tokens to actually get the new tanks in a timely manner. And then I think they'll slip in experimental equipment and components and monetize that in some form, because we have seen no mention of that whatsoever, like Battle Pass events, anything. And that's very telling, in my opinion, to where, you know, they obviously know that people are going to be very upset about this update. And altogether, like, they're trying to get you to pay more per month to get everything you need from the game, then also introduce some new elements that you have to pay for. In addition, all of these random auction events and loot box events to where you can't necessarily buy a tank directly anymore. Like, when's the last time they sold a new tank directly in the premium shop? Yeah, I don't remember either. So all in all, it's very upsetting because, you know, for someone like myself, and I've played the game, you know, since July 2011, and, you know, creating content for all this years. Yes, Wargaming, they've kind of jumped the shark, you know, quite a few times, and they've always been very aggressive monetizing the game, but this is going too far. Like, enough is enough. Where honestly, the only thing they're going to listen to is the community and people spending money. That's all Wargaming cares about. I've always been a big proponent of providing feedback to them. It's a waste of time, honestly. At this point, they do not care about our feedback, except for, I am not going to spend any more money on the game. Playing the game is one thing, you know. If you already spent money on it, keep playing away. But the only thing that they will care about is if they make less money, because, like, let's be honest, they've gone through a lot of major restructuring. Honestly, some of these decisions are probably based off of that happening, but instead of them trying to improve the game, expand it, kind of like console has with, you know, with their Cold War era tanks, add new features, bring new players in, you know, allow people to basically continue to spend money and support, they're essentially going probably the most, I guess, insulting and like evil way possible by just figuring out every single possible way to monetize every piece of content, where nothing is basically, you know, I guess, safe from them essentially to monetize directly or indirectly in any way at this point. In any event, though, hopefully, if you've made it this far in this video, because this is extremely long, but kind of knew it was going to be this long, please let me know your comments in the description, whether you agree or disagree with me. And yeah, I'm very glad I finally was able to get all of this off of my chest, because this has been weighing on me for quite some time. But I'm hopeful that Wargaming kind of reconsiders some things, and it's very, you know, do I think they're likely to do that? from all the effort that they've put into trying to force all this through, and the most recent months, I'm not very hopeful. And it's kind of depressing, but you know, I guess all good things, you know, come to an end at some point. Hopefully, you know, I guess they open their eyes a little bit before that happens. But thanks again for watching this, and I appreciate you if you stuck around for about 50 minutes. Thank you, and hope to see you in another video in the future. Have a good one.